This is the Stop Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I'm here to engage you in thought-provoking, motivational conversations around practicing the art of living in the moment. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm excited to dig deep and offer insights into embracing who we are and where we are at. So my next guest is currently most well known for her series regular role as Violet on NBC's Chicago Fire. But I know her as the dedicated and passionate performing artist that she is, and have had the great pleasure of working with her in the dance studio as her teacher while she was pursuing her BFA in musical theater from Pace. It has been so much fun watching her trajectory, and I am grateful to have been part of her journey, which at just 26 years old is only just beginning. Truly. So excited for this conversation and the opportunity to sit down today with the one and only Hanako Greensmith.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. This is so surreal.
Welcome. It's so great. Really, thanks so much for taking the time. I mean, I know it took us a while to find the time.
I know, no, but I'm so grateful that we found it. All in divine timing, I say. I loved your questions on the questionnaire as I was reading them, and I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be a really fascinating and wonderful conversation. I love that you're asking these questions because they're not so much to do with the objective success, whatever that means for performers. It's really about what do you do in the interim and what does success really feel like or mean to you when you've achieved something that you might have thought you wouldn't have.
I'm with you on that. Like I told you, I'm not attached to I didn't even know you were on Chicago Fire, actually. I mean, I know now, obviously. But when I asked you, I wasn't thinking of that. I was just thinking of interesting people. And I knew that you were working. I mean, I knew you were busy and stuff like that. And then I looked you up and I was like, oh, that's cool, Wait,
that makes me so happy because I had no idea. I love that we've seemed to have both connected in some way in your class.
Yeah, totally. No, it's super cool. It's super cool. So first of all, where are you right now? Are you in New York?
I'm actually in LA. My parents are away doing some work overseas. And so they were like, will you do us a favor and water the plants? And I'm on hiatus from work and there's a writer's strike. So I said, I love a place to stay in LA for free. I will absolutely water your plants. And so that's why I'm
Oh, that's so cool. So I was under the impression that your parents lived in New York, but no?
Well, I grew up, wow, good memory, because I grew up in New York, but my dad ended up getting a job in LA. So he moved here actually right after I graduated high school. So I went to Pace and was commuting to LA for the holidays.
Oh, okay. I got it. So that's cool. So you're on hiatus and there's a strike. That's always fun.
Really? Yeah. Having the time of my life.
So how long have you called LA like home? Do you call that home now? I mean, you said after your senior year in high school, you moved here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that New York is probably still my home. I think going to high school there and then going to Pace and staying in those years after that, I also just felt very close to New York. It was a very love-hate relationship, and that's how I know I can call a place home. When I feel like I know so much about it, I know what makes me feel safe and makes me feel loved, but also know all the things that make it really frustrating and at times unlivable. So I definitely still find New York a home of mine. I live in Chicago now for work. And that's slowly becoming my own version of home there too. But LA is still kind of a foreign beast. I love visiting her, but it comes with its own kind of curiosities that I'm still learning to figure out that makes sense for me, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you didn't go to LA like a lot of actors do. I'm not hearing that at all. You're like, I'm going to LA because that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not hearing that at all. It's like, no, I got a apartment to hang it. I got some time. I'm going to go there. That's awesome.
Totally. I mean, I might end up here one day in a couple of years. I don't know, but it's kind of nice to kind of experience what it's like to be here without a schedule, just to experience what it's like to be an actor, kind of figuring out the interim time that is most of our time and see how that energetically feels for me and if that's something I could do in the future.
Totally. And I love how you said energetically feels. I mean, you're talking my language, right? Literally, like I say, when I talk to my guests and my clients, it's like I check in with how they're doing energetically because that's where we operate from. Energy is the way we lead, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you feeling energetically?
That's a good question. I was just thinking about that as you said that. I was like, I haven't asked myself that in a while.
Yeah.
I think I'm feeling a mixed bag. I think I'm feeling a little disappointed in myself, which is feeling a little harsh just because I have this strange unique blessing of knowing I have work on the other side of the strike because I know I have another season of work coming up. And yet I feel like I'm not taking advantage of this freedom enough, even though what I'm doing can be perfectly enough. And I feel like I'm constantly trying to find the best case scenario of what I'm doing with my time. And when it doesn't feel like I'm doing the best thing I can be doing, I get really hard on myself. So I think I'm feeling energetically like a little depleted. I'm asking too much of myself and I'm not enjoying what I have in front of me at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. No, but it's perfectly natural, first of all, right? I mean, you're a high achiever just by nature. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, you want to be the best you can be and do what you do. And I, knowing you, I don't know you that well, but I can even just tell, even though I didn't know you, that it's not about just the one thing you're doing. I feel like it's all aspects of your life that you set the bar for yourself, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
The only thing that you define as your occupation, it's like all
no
about
kidding.
your life too. And for me, like my home has to feel like my sanctuary. Like that's something I invest a lot of time and energy into as well. There are a lot of facets of your life that make up your life.
Yeah, I love that. Is that a common, you shared with me that you kind of beat yourself up a little bit when you're not, I don't want to paraphrase, finish that phrase.
I just thank you. I think I beat myself up when I don't feel like I'm doing enough. And I've noticed that unless I'm like stretched thin or I'm at like my total capacity, I don't feel like I'm working hard enough to deserve the things that I have or to get more of what it is that I want. Like New York was kind of a terrible addiction because you can really, really push yourself to a point where you feel like you can't breathe. And that's kind of where everyone exists energetically in New York. And it's addictive because as someone who wants to be an overachiever and doesn't necessarily feel like they're achieving enough, you can push like a hamster on a wheel until you absolutely burn out. Yep. And that you can live at that state for years at a time. It's not healthy, but a lot of us do it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're bang on. It's unsustainable for sure. It's interesting because the stretching yourself thin, like and full capacity, like that sounds like a massive limiting belief right there, right? That in order to function at my full capacity, I need to be stretching myself thin is what I kind of heard underneath what you were saying.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because and you're not alone. So I think thank you for sharing that because I'm sure that the listeners will kind of go, yeah. But
unfortunately, I hope so.
Well, the thing is, and this is where we kind of call it out, is sort of say, where does it come from? You did share that it comes from New York, but besides from an environment, for you, where does it come from? Where does that message come that when you're at your full capacity, that you're best?
What's its history? Yeah, I think for me in particular, I come from a family of musicians. And my father has a very similar attitude of just doing as much as you humanly, physically can at all times. And I remember I was locked down with my parents at one point, and I'm an only child, and so I also happen to kind of I get the most exposure to my parents. It's not me and my sibling, it's me and my parents.
Yeah.
And so I think during lockdown it was hard because I was in between jobs. I had no idea what I was doing. I was even just thinking, I don't think I have the mental stamina to be an actor. I don't think I can withstand this. And I know so many incredible, talented actors who are like, I love acting. I don't love the lifestyle. And I wondered if that was going to be me too. And so I think being exposed to watching my dad my whole life, but especially during the pandemic, find ways to continue just pounding into himself as much as he can and doing as much as possible, given the limitations of COVID. I feel like that is a lot of why I also feel like I'm constantly underachieving. I have to do as much as he's doing, or I have to be striving to absolute, full, unsustainable, stretched thin in order for me to feel like I'm actually accomplishing enough to define myself as an artist, which isn't true. I mean, I could say someone who does pottery on Saturday is also an artist. You can do the least amount of art and still be an artist. As long as you're just partaking in it and you view yourself as one, that's all you have to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are an artist. It's so funny. Well, you're an artist sitting here. We are artists sitting here, and it's so interesting, right? It's so interesting. And so it's so understandable that this happens. And yeah, that makes sense that it was modeled a little bit. Right. And so obviously, you love your parents
Of course.
and,
Yeah.
and it probably brought you, got you into some good schools and got you some good training. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
when we have these, when we sort of model these things, have them modeled and then also follow along
Mhm.
and we get good things, it's difficult to ever sort of think about it as, well, maybe that's not working
Right.
anymore because that's what got me here. But what got
Absolutely.
you here is not what's going to get you where you want to go. It just isn't.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's a toxic thing. When it works, then it's like I used to over prepare like crazy for everything to a point where it would kind of limit me in the moment. And then the problem is though, like I wouldn't forget my lines, I wouldn't forget my lyrics, I wouldn't forget the steps. So it then kind of became a practice that I couldn't let go of because I knew it was the one thing I could trust. But then it's taken a lot of time to trust myself and to know that even if I haven't pounded it into myself, it's there. I can trust my capabilities to show up when I need them to.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. I mean, it's funny. I work a lot with my clients about recognizing that their strengths are sometimes their weaknesses because we default to them. That's
Yeah,
what I always am. That's what got me here.
right.
I've got this. Let's
Mhm.
do it. Right.
Yeah,
And what you don't realize when you do that all the time is that there's other options. There are other shades of you that can actually,
yeah,
you can operate from that are more effective actually in
yeah,
different scenarios.
100%.
you know
Yeah,
the nuance, and even as an actor, right? I mean, the nuance that you can add to that. I mean, if you played the character all one way,
yeah.
like it'd be a
That's
very shallow character, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. Every person, for better for worse, has very many colors. Yep.
you're the character.
Mhm. Yep.
Your story,
Yeah.
follow that. I mean,
Right.
what you do for your characters that you're playing, you're not even relating those things to yourself.
Right. What do I need? What do I want? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. We're so conditioned to ignore those elements of ourselves, our basic fundamental desires and needs.
No, and we're trained to think that wanting, a lot of us feel like saying you want something is greedy or narcissistic or this or that, and that's not what want means.
No, no, I agree.
you know
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's so interesting. So yeah, so a lot of time it's just like, what do you want? Like if I said to you, what do you want, how would you answer me?
Oh, right now, what I want, I know it. I want to be in nature so badly. I've been in cities for so long, and I just want to wake up to birds, not honks from cars. That's all I want right now. That's actually all I want.
That's amazing. So tell me a bit about why that's important to you, especially right now.
I think I've been in need of an emotional reset. And I feel like it's really hard for me to focus on my needs and wants when I'm so distracted by so much happening around me. And I noticed during lockdown, although it was emotionally, mentally such a challenging time for me and for everyone I knew around me, I found that by being, at one point I was with my last partner's family for a while, and just being in Massachusetts in the summer was huge for me. Just being able to go on a walk and take it like a little meditation by a creek was so huge for my mental stability. And not having access to that for so long, and after so much work this year of just not, like, again, being stretched so thin, I start to find that the only thing that brings me nourishment or brings me back to myself is just being with trees, with grass, with water, with birds, with animals. All of it, it's so simple, but so many of us live without it day to day. And there's a reason why, we were born from the earth. Like, we should be around it more than we often are.
Mm. And do you think that if you had that regularly, that it would be easier for you to show up to your full capacity?
I do. I think it would be also easier for me to show up to my artistic capacity. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel very separate from it when I'm in a city. There's just too much to take me away from it.
Yeah. So when you have this time that you referred to right now, where you're telling yourself you're not working hard enough, you're not stretching yourself thin or whatever, but actually what it is this gift of time, the strike, and then the knowing.
Yeah.
With what you just told me, can you make the connection of, I want to work to my fullest capacity, which is what your voice is saying. You can say, yes, I want that too. Thank you for that message. And what I just told Lisa is that
Yeah.
what will help me be at my best capacity is nature. And I
Yeah.
have time for that right now. Therefore,
Right.
boom. Can
Yep.
you make that connection? Does your brain go, oh no, that's wasting time. You're in LA, go out and audition. What does it say?
Well, what I think my mind then says is how? How are you going to make that happen? I mean, here are all the obstacles that are in front of you to make that happen. You know, I have to be in LA. I have plans to see people. I do want to be in the city to experiment living here. I might want to see my partner at the end of the month. I also then want to see my friend in the Adirondacks maybe next month. That interferes with, I find a way to like put a speed bump to every way I could execute what it is that I want and need.
Totally, totally. And guess what? You're not going to call you out. That's the victim mentality. That's
Yeah.
totally acting. I can't. I can't do that because all these external things that if we were working together, I'd call bullshit.
Please call bullshit.
You're in freaking California, like one of those beautiful states in the world. I mean, even LA, there are places to go. I mean, I've lived there. I know there are. Anyways, I'm going to not harp on you.
No, you're right. I mean, and that's where, I'll even Google like, getaways, solo trip getaways, and somehow I'll find a reason to not allow myself to go.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it was like, because I have to be productive, but it's literally the victim mentality of just, oh, but I can't because of blah. I'm making it not happen for myself.
Yeah, those are lies. And without going into an actual coaching session.
Yeah, sure. Well, we can have it another time. I'm game.
Totally. It's so interesting though. So listen, I read somewhere, maybe it probably does link in because things do. I read somewhere that when you got the role of Violet, that you auditioned once for the role without a callback.
Yeah.
And it says, as for the quick audition process, you said maybe it's because they needed someone pretty last minute. I don't even know. Did you say that?
Thank you for doing such loving research. Yes, I did say that.
Okay. Why did you say that? What did you mean by that?
I mean, I have all my own theories of what, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes, but I guess I just figured because in all of the smaller roles that I had, especially with this casting office, I had assumed like someone must have dropped out for it to be such like a expedited process. And I remember coming into the audition room and they already had so many notes before I even started. So it felt like maybe you've seen a lot of people misinterpret these lines and you just want to see before we waste time on me misinterpreting it, if I get it right the first time. Yeah, I love, you're right. As you said that I feel like it might've been a subtle call out. Tell me if I'm incorrect, but of like assuming that I couldn't have just been right for the role, assuming that I must have just been saving the situation and been someone's backup as opposed to their first choice.
Yeah, because you hadn't spread yourself too thin yet, which is your familiar place. You hadn't killed yourself to get the job.
Right. And therefore I didn't feel like I must have deserved it. Damn, Lisa, call me out.
It makes sense, right? I mean, but what's cool is when you recognize that's pattern recognition. And that means you recognize that you break that pattern. You start to break it. It's not going to break just like that, but you'll become more aware of this. And then you'll start to disprove these justification lies that your brain has. Which is and it's there to keep you safe. I mean, that's what I always say. We always spend so much time saying, I don't want to have these thoughts. And we spend a lot of energy trying to get rid of them. But, in my work, we talk about, no. We want to repurpose the energy. We want energy.
Yeah, of course.
So we get to know these thoughts and sort of call them out in a way, but not in a way like, screw you, get the hell out of here. But rather, where did this come up from? That makes sense. It did help me then.
Right.
I'm a big girl now. I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
So this is what I'd like, I call it rescripting, rescripting your rewrite, the gremlin. Just say, look, I don't need you to play that role in my life anymore.
Yeah.
But what I could do is I could really use you for this, like to help me when I go to audition to not stay up too late, trying to make it perfect, or do 25, self tapes instead of, 6.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean? And so, and then you get the buy-in literally from your own energy, your own self.
Yeah, right.
And then you start repurposing it so it serves you rather than,
Oh, right. Rather than you feeling like you have to berate a version of yourself or punish a version of yourself. It's just actually all love. It's just repurposing. It's like, hey, Gremlin, you're really good at that. I think I have you in the wrong occupation, but you're really good at this kind of thing. So let's put you here and then you can go here. Because I actually think if you guys switched, it would be more helpful to me.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. The whole scene looks a little better when you space it out this way, or, when you're playing it, you've outgrown the role.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I hope so. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you face right now? You've kind of shared a little bit of it with me, which is kind of giving yourself grace. It sounds like a little bit. Is there anything else? Like if I were to say to you, and actually maybe challenge is a word that this also strikes me,
Mm,
is that you are very, tell me if I'm wrong. You can totally tell me if I'm wrong. So I don't want to project, but
no, feel free.
I get the sense that, you know, you're okay with being a work in progress, that you're
Mm,
not about the last credit, the next credit, that you are like, even the fact that when I said send me your bio, you sent me like, I mean, it was basically, no, but it's totally fine. I love
yeah.
that. See, but I love that. You didn't
Yeah.
go, and she worked with us and she did that and she did this and she let it go and she, do you know what I mean? And I love that. Says something about you though, that you're not resting on your laurels. You're not saying what's coming up. You're not
Mhm.
anything. So I'm just curious, like, when I even say challenge, is that even a thing for you, or do you like challenge? Do you thrive? So when I say what's the biggest challenge, do you go, I don't know, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, it's funny that you say that. I feel like my bio was actually short, maybe not because I don't prioritize, what it is that I've accomplished, or I don't feature it as a part of myself. I genuinely am like, I don't have so much to share. I feel like I feel like since graduating, like my trajectory has been very linear. It's just been kind of like two small things and then one big thing. And I've just stuck with the big thing for a while. And I've
Mm,
loved every second of it. It's had its own challenges, but I genuinely deeply love it.
yeah.
Um, I would say actually one of my biggest challenges is I do feel like I'm an actor that I validate myself based off of accomplishments outside of myself, not things that I've accomplished within myself as a person, but things that I can use as armor, being like, yes, but I've done this. So therefore I'm validated. You can still think I'm an actor because I'm working on a show right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is a challenge for me, is finding worth outside of my occupation, finding worth in the progress or in the process, like work in progress that I am,
Yeah.
and still feeling okay with that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I constantly struggle with it. I think I noticed actually when I got Chicago Fire as a more permanent gig, that was the thing I relished the most, was after the pandemic and people being like, being an actor must be hard, right? Because you can't work that much and you've got to be broke all the time. And yeah, that's true a lot of the time. But for the first time in my life, I was able to say, no, here's my armor. I have something to show you. I can prove to you that I am worthy of being an actor and I'm worthy of being, for some reason, therefore also a person, which is problematic. And I'm working on that. And I don't like that part of myself right now.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. What do you think might have been different had you not gotten a long-standing gig?
Yeah, now I
Yeah.
think about it a lot. I wonder, would I have actually left the industry? Would I have said, yeah, my mental health really, really struggled right before this job.
Mm.
This job almost didn't happen, and there's a really long story behind it that we honestly not worth getting into. But it tested me and my mental stability within the industry in a way that I hadn't experienced yet. When you're in school, it's 4 years of training and you can kind of just enjoy that there's another year of school, there's another year of school, and then senior year hits and you're looking at life dead in the eyes. And so I wonder where I would have gone and how I would have stayed maybe with or not with the, the industry had this job not come into fruition. Looking into the future, I won't be with this show forever. And to see how will I show up for myself when that moment arrives? Because I won't be 20, 21, 22. I'll
Mm.
probably be end of my 20s or maybe my 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so valid. And it's really interesting because you're right. I mean, it's a gig and it's great, but it's really no different than a 9 to 5 person in another industry getting a great job and then sticking with it.
100%. Right.
And there's no difference between that. But as artists, you don't know, right? It's so ambiguous. We don't know what might be next.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
Yes, it's
hard.
true. And there's a reason why I think actors are inclined to not be the 9 to 5s. And I mean, some people love their 9 to 5s. Like, I've got good health insurance, I want 2 kids, and I want to live in this suburb. And that job gives them everything they need. But
Yep.
for actors, that's not often what they're looking for. And if it is, normally they don't stay because you won't find that in acting most of the time.
Yeah. No, for sure. So what do you think now? Where are you at now? Because you've had some time kind of on both sides, right? I mean, you described the time when you felt like you didn't even know if you could handle it, right? And then this thing came along and you're like, okay. So you're sort of riding the wave. And so it ticks a lot of boxes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
are you still feeling like you want to keep doing this? I mean, obviously you're going to do it Well, maybe not, obviously.
Hmm. I know. I think it's going to be really interesting for me to see how the work that I've done shows up, like the internal work that I've done shows up or doesn't show up after this gig comes to an end, and to see how I weather the storm. But I think a lot of what this job did for me is it proved that, like, I look back on it and I'm like, I almost left this industry, this job, this love of mine, and I had barely been out of school. I barely gave myself grace or patience to just stick with me and believe that maybe I had enough to get me somewhere. And I think that was a valuable experience to now look back on that timeline and see how much I've been lucky enough to experience in this particular job. That proved to me a couple of times over that there's still so much, not only that I'm able or capable of doing, but how much I love, how much, like, maybe the waiting is worth it, because that flicker of joy that you get to experience when you really get to do what you love for a short period of time makes it all worth it. I'm really hoping that that lesson sticks with me and all of the uncertainty that comes after. And hopefully I can have patience and grace with myself after to enjoy other outlets while I wait, or like while I work towards the next little flicker that I get to experience, and just kind of lily pad until I feel this is still serving me or not serving me anymore.
I'm so curious, like with your gig now, I get the sense that there's kind of a more normal 9 to 5 kind of feeling about it.
Yes, it is. It is the corporate job of the acting industry.
Yeah.
Like, in kind of in a beautiful way, because you still get to do what you love, but you have the luxuries of stability that you don't often get. Like, we're lucky enough that we're even on a show that we can trust. Usually, at the end of a season, we'll get another one.
Mm.
It's been around for so long. It's a well-oiled machine. Like, even a day on set, we all know where everything's going to be, how long it's going to take, more or less, where we're going to shoot it, what the atmosphere will be like. So there's something really familiar about it, and therefore very steady.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So in that comfort, do you find that you're able to start to grow and build some of those inner resources, so that, not because there's going to be a storm, but just so that you can take your time to evolve in it?
Yeah. I think it challenges me in a bunch of separate ways that I hope prepares me for the future. But, one of them being I'm learning how to come to set a little less incredibly prepared. Like, I had a really big emotional story arc at the beginning of last season, and I was incredibly intimidated by it. It was like truly Hanako's greatest fear of having to execute something of that nature on a camera. And having actually had to do it and realizing when the moment came, I realized I'd actually already done all the work. I'd been with this character for a while. I know her needs, I know her wants, I know her whys. And so when I came to set, being able to trust that it will show up for me was a huge learning lesson. And that's just one of the lessons that I feel like I've been able to take away from this gig, from this work.
I'm going to ask you to put humility aside.
Yeah, okay.
For a minute. I know that's hard to do. I know. and just really, I just want you to tell me, what would you say are your unique gifts?
It's funny. I think the thing that I used to be kind of critiqued for almost when I was little was for being very sensitive. Like, I was the kid, I would always get a call home, like, Hanako was crying in class again today. And I would have to go home and be like, please stop crying in school. And as I grew up, I realized, that was the thing I was really embarrassed by. I really struggled with not being able to, like, put my emotions away. And especially ones of, grief or fear. And I think over time, I have learned how to sympathize with others and in characters in a way, because I have had no choice but to be so connected to this, like, overflowing emotional well that I feel like is such a part of me. And I think that's maybe to put it simply, empathy. Empathy is one thing that I feel like is one unique gift of mine that I have interacted with for a lot of my life.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
What else comes to mind? What are you holding back?
Right.
Come on.
I'm trying to think. I'm like, what else do I feel like? Well, okay. I think I really love to connect to other people.
Yeah.
I love feeling a part of a community. It's huge for my just overall health to feel like I have a community. I think, like, coming into a project and feeling like I can really make family out of who I'm with
Mm.
makes for such better work, but also in your life to make other people feel wanted, to make other people feel desired, to make them feel like there's a reason for other people to be curious about them. I love, questioning other people and getting to know other people. I
Yeah.
think that's one other gift of mine. And I think it can be very broad, but I think even as a kid, I felt creativity is such a huge part of the world around me. I do feel at this moment of my life, I'm not expressing myself as creatively as I want to. But at the same time, I do feel like I see creativity everywhere I go. In
Mm.
other people, in the things they wear, and the food we eat, like in the air we breathe, there's so much beautiful art everywhere. If you really just take a second to sit with it. And I think that's like one unique gift of perspective that I have found in myself in the past few years.
Yeah, I love that. That's really beautiful. It makes me want to ask you, what would you want to do creatively that you're not doing right now?
I think like I have so many friends who are so good at and I don't think you have to make anything to be creative, but who are they have like that creative fire in them. Whether it's like, I'm going to paint today. I'm going to crochet today. I'm going to go compose a song. I'm going to learn the guitar. Like there's so many ways that you can participate in creativity that don't have to be that. But that's, I think, one way in which, again, like I wish I could, like I feel like when I was younger, I was so good at expressing myself through that. And as you get older, society kind of beats it out of you. I remember like in math class, I would get in trouble because I'd be doodling instead of paying attention. And I'm realizing that's when I stopped drawing. Like that's when the world told me there's no space for that. There are more important things. And so getting back to that element of just this childlike curiosity for creativity and this need for artistry, I miss that. It's like how Picasso, as problematic as he was, he spent so much of his life trying to draw like a child.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it becomes very difficult as you get older.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting. There's a hunger there that's not being fed. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because the emptiness, right? The hunger, I feel like, and again, this is conjecture, so you can totally jump back at me and say, no, that's not it. But at least it'll which is being filled with, again, all these, again, calling you kind of excuses. Because when I asked you, I gave you the opportunity to say what you want to do to be creative. You started telling me about all the other people. You started, really what you were talking about was, I wish I could have my on-ramp to
Yeah.
creativity was easier. But you weren't even thinking about the thing, right? And I asked you about the thing, which is interesting. So I just want to point that out. There's no
Thank
judgment.
you. No, no, no. Thanks for pointing it out. And you're absolutely right.
Do you know? And then the other is like that sort of, again, massive limiting belief about, well, it's just they beat it out of you. That you're like, come on.
Totally.
I don't believe you. And I because I know how multi-talented you are, and it's not about talent, but nevertheless, if you got it, you got it, and you do. But do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I know that you're, and I can do this with you because I know you, but you're extraordinarily creative. Like I know that, and there's probably masses of areas of where you could put that aren't so specific to what people expect. Like, you're probably expecting me to go, oh yeah, you mean singing and dancing and all the things I'm trained for, and all. Well, yeah, sure, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's living your life creatively.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even
Yeah.
as you said it, I realized like I moved into a new home this year and I spent so much time being hard on myself for spending so much time making my home beautiful. And now I'm like, well, that was a form of creativity. Like I got to choose for the first time ever, I got to choose the colors that I wanted to be surrounded by and all the artwork that I wanted to see when I woke up in the day and the texture I wanted to feel. Like all of that. You're right. That's creativity too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you
So
for calling me up. I appreciate it. You're always welcome to do
yeah,
that.
no, it's my pleasure. It's what I do. Well, it is funny. If you take the word creativity and you move the C, or vice versa, I prefer to do it the other way, but it becomes reactivity.
Ooh, love
Just
that.
saying.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So whatever you're feeling reactive, man, just move that C to the front.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. What is your definition of living in the moment?
Mm. I think living in the moment is, like we said earlier, I think it's giving yourself grace.
Mm.
I think it's experiencing all of the creativity around you in that present moment. I think it's sitting with what is happening within you and being okay with what is happening within you.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with that for sure. I'm constantly being reminded by my friends and family, well, mainly my friends, that I'm perpetually anxious about the future and nostalgic for the past, even when I'm
Mm.
sitting in a perfectly lovely moment.
Do you feel like you're in the moment right now?
Yeah, I feel like having this conversation with you is putting me back in center, putting me back into
Cool.
place.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Hey, what's the hardest thing you've ever done?
Oh, oh man, so many things come to mind.
Mm.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things I've ever done was probably I was in a 6 year relationship with a very lovely person. We're still close. But hardest thing I ever done was prioritizing myself and sitting with what was true and lovingly detaching from something that I held so much identity with. That was, I think, in recent memory, that's one of the hardest things I've done.
Yeah.
Other than too, but I think that also kind of embodies that time that I think was very difficult.
So what was it about you that was able to do that?
I think it was recognizing my needs and wants and recognizing also my partner's needs and wants at that time and knowing that they were not synced and knowing that we weren't allowing space for growth for each other to know what it was that we truly wanted to be.
Mm.
And so I think coming to terms with that, it was very difficult, but having the capacity to finally do it and separate myself so I felt independent, I felt like my own person, gave me the space to come to those recognitions.
Yeah. And you just used the word capacity, which is kind of which is
Mhm.
kind of what I was getting at, because you talk about how that's important to you for whatever reason to really, and so you were not living in your full capacity connected to, say, your values in this case, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter what it is, but it's something that was not something was not you weren't living to your fullest capacity, not like, again, necessarily with the person or whatever, but with your truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
That's awesome. And it's good to remember that, because that's where we mine our strengths. We
Hmm.
remember things that were really hard and, difficult and all of that. But the fact that you're here telling me a story or telling yourself the story, you can remember, you can sit and remember and reflect on the nostalgia of good and bad in the past, or you can also like take things from that and bring them to the present and
Yeah.
apply them to now, right? So it becomes a bit of a sieve. So you can sort of say, what was it about me that was able to do that? Like that was a strength, not like, holy shit, I got through it. And then it's just another story, and there was drama and there was fire, and because we're storytellers. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, like, but if you can focus it back on like, yeah, figuring out what's in you and reminding your brain that no, that was in my toolkit, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find your values there, and you're going to find your tools and your strengths.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that reminder. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thinking about, yeah, it's a nice reminder to remember I'm capable of this. I've done it before and I can do it again.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I love that. Hey, what big audacious goal or dream do you have that maybe you haven't even put out in the universe?
Ooh, okay. One goal I have for myself. Well, it's kind of materialistic, this first one. I've always, always, always wanted to be able to like purchase my own like cabin in a forest by a body of water. Going back to like my corny homestead, like nature dreams. But
That's
I
not
remember
corny. It's not corny. It's funny.
I just remember I was so jealous of the kids who had that growing up, and all I've ever wanted was just to have my own like escape. I don't want to have to Airbnb or rent. Like I want to go somewhere familiar and beautiful, and also unfamiliar because nature is forever changing, and be able to call that mine.
What do you know will stay true about you no matter what happens?
Ooh, see, first things that come to mind are all negative things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. The first thing that will stay true to me, my first instinct is like, I will always have to kind of like manage my own particular mania. Like I will always kind of have to be sheriffing my own intensity when it comes to my own cyclical thoughts, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, but I wanna find a positive. I think the thing that will remain true is that I think I will always be yearning to cultivate a community. I think
Mm.
that's true. I've noticed that in my life, the saddest parts of my life are the moments where I felt totally community less, where I didn't feel like I had people to call a tribe or people to go to.
Mm.
And so I think forever in my life, I will want to prioritize being able to be independent on my own, but
Mm.
also know that it's going to be really important for me to have people that I call close around me in some capacity.
I love that. This is really beautiful. So can you finish this phrase? Most people think Hanako Greensmith is, but the truth is.
I mean, I feel like this isn't doing justice to the question, but I think my go-to answer is I think people assume that I'm very outgoing because I like to interact with people. I'm friendly, community, whatever.
Mm.
But the truth is, I'm, I think I'm very introspective and therefore actually like to spend, it's kind of a strange dichotomy, but I like to spend time on my own. It's really important that I spend time on my own, actually, as
Yeah.
difficult as I find it to be sometimes. That's
Yeah.
like my first level answer, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair. How do you want to be remembered?
Ooh, how do I want to be remembered?
Yeah.
I want to be remembered to the people. I mean, I don't know. This is the first thing that came to my head. I want to be remembered as someone who loved you.
Mm.
To the people that I care
Yeah,
about.
of course. Yeah.
I hope I hope they know that. That's how I want to be
That's really
remembered.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Even just the way you answered the question was you just jumped into this is what first came to, there was no rehearsal. There was
Mhm.
no wearing yourself, that you just tapped in. You were just like, and then when you said it, it was as if you were saying it to me, like it was so real.
I'm glad. Yeah. I'm realizing in this conversation, it showed me that I don't actually usually listen to my first instinct. I, for some
Mm.
reason, question it and then have to kind of belittle it somehow before then executing it.
Yeah. So I could talk to
Yeah.
you all day long, but I guess I got to do. Okay. So I'm going to say what makes you,
Okay.
and then you're just going to say what comes to mind. So I'm going to say a word. Here's, for example, I'm going to say, what makes you hungry?
Ooh. Oh, food. Yeah, I think what makes me hungry is can I give you want long answers or short answers?
Do whatever you want.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I love food. Food makes me so happy. Connecting with people over a good meal, making food for people, having food made for you, experiencing a candlelit dinner, experiencing brunch, and getting boozy and enjoying each other in that capacity. Yeah, that makes me hungry.
Wow. That was beautiful. That was visceral. I felt that. That was amazing. What makes you sad?
Disappointment in both myself and others. Hurting, like grief, I think. Nostalgia, missing things that have already passed and won't come back again.
Mm, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I'm going to refrain from jumping in there. That's really cool, though. What inspires you?
People, power, bravery, courage, risks, jumping into the unknown. Um, yeah, I think all of those things.
Mm. And when you feel
Yeah.
inspired, what do you do? How does that shift your energy?
Ooh, I feel it like right here. I feel it in my chest, like this really bright light that
Mm.
starts to glow, this like yellow, all-encompassing power. Inspired, yeah, to feel motivated, to feel connected to something outside of yourself. Yeah, to feel invigorated in what it is that you love.
I love that. How often do you feel that?
Ooh, it's kind of rare nowadays, but sometimes like when I watch like if I see a piece of theater that I
Mm.
think really clicks into something that makes me feel a part of what that is that they're saying. That makes me feel so inspired just to be invested in the piece and also just fall back in love with what I originally fell in love with in acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll go back to musical theater? And
I don't know. It would take, I think, something special. I think I became very disillusioned by musical theater in the
Mm.
past couple years. I just felt like there was so much I was inspired by. Like when I was a teenager, just thinking, could I ever do this? I want to try it.
Yeah.
And then I think the industry kind of shifted a little bit, and I just didn't see a version of myself anywhere. And
Mm.
I just didn't feel like fighting for it anymore. I didn't feel like that was serving me. It didn't inspire me to have to fight to be seen in spaces that I didn't feel made sense for me.
Hmm.
So finding other places that did feels better for right now. But if that door opened again, I would not close it, nor would I walk by it. I would hopefully walk into it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
What frustrates you?
Ooh, my first answer is myself. I feel like like you said earlier, I feel like I victimize myself a lot, and I put
Mm.
myself in the way a lot. So I think that's the first thing that frustrates me. I won't often be frustrated with someone else in the situation. I sure
Mm.
could be, but most of the time I'm frustrated with how I'm reacting to it as opposed to what it is that they might have done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. What makes you laugh?
Oh, what makes me laugh? Oh man, I just anything kind of. I've always found slapstick humor really funny, and I think sharing moments with someone where you're kind of at the same level of understanding what it is that's so funny, that is the thing that'll keep me rolling and rolling and rolling into laughter. It's like each wave will come and kind of take you over. That kind of keeps me laughing for a while.
I love that. That's such a great feeling, right? It's just like someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Struggling to breathe because you're having so much fun is
Oh
the
my
best.
God. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you
Yeah.
on that. That's amazing. What makes you angry?
Again, myself. I think the frustration and the anger kind of go hand in hand. But I
Mm.
also think, I think feeling belittled is another thing that makes me feel really angry. I think seeing people that I love being belittled or not being respected or not being given the rights that they so deserve just by being a human being on this planet, that makes me angry. It makes me want to protect them. And when I know that there's so little I can really do to protect them, that makes me more angry, but in a way that makes me feel like sorrowful and angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, what makes you grateful?
That makes me grateful. All of the wonderful people in my life, all of the incredible luck that I have experienced. I would be a fool to not know that so much of what I have is because I just got lucky in this life. And I'm really, really grateful. And I'm grateful that I have enough perspective to know to be grateful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. What are the top 3 things that happened so far today?
Ooh, I would say, I talked to a friend. She's in a time of need. That made me really happy.
Mm.
Um, not for her, but to be able to be someone that is helpful to her.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to my mom, and she's a violinist, but she hasn't really worked in a long time, but she's working right now in Italy,
Mm.
and I'm really happy for her, and that made me really happy to hear my mom be busy.
Yeah.
And the third thing is my family has a really nice coffee maker, and I made myself a really good Americano.
I love it. Let's be real, right?
Yeah, I had a great cup of coffee before I got here. So yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. And what's something you're looking forward to, both in like today and then
yeah.
also in the future?
Today, I'm looking forward to being okay with the fact that I am tired today. So I'm going to do little errands that make me feel productive, but don't deplete me,
Mm.
not getting in a car. And I think more long term, just for I think the summer, I'm looking forward to getting past this speed bump and putting myself in a situation that I alone desperately want and need, which is to just get out of a city and to be one with my mind and to experience just being with nature in a way that I haven't been in a really long time. After this conversation, I'm going to prioritize it.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Thank you for inspiring me.
Yeah, no, listen, I can't thank you enough for joining me and taking the time to do this.
This was an absolute joy, and I'm not surprised in any way, but I am really grateful that you invited me to be here with you. I loved every second.
Oh, so did I. Listen, I've been speaking today with Hanako Greensmith. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. And remember to live in the moment. In music, stop time is that beautiful moment where the band is suspended in rhythmic unison, supporting the soloist to express their individuality. In the moment, I encourage you to take that time and create your own rhythm. Until next time, I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks for listening.